What's going on, guys? This is Kaisha. Welcome back. So we are back with another video. So in this video, we're going to cover top 5 meta decks in OCG format this February 2025 post-ALIN format. The unrequited love for the new format. So in this month of love, February, we are going to discover what are the top 5 best decks post-ALIN and which unrequited love from the past best decks are still going on and still dominating the scene right now. So without further ado, let's start. So moving on first towards our February 2025 metagame preview, ALIN was introduced and some assets into the metagame was added. It introduced Regenesis, for example, and other supports for White Forest, and supports for Maliss and Ryzeal. So it impacted the metagame by a large scale and also a much more standardized format than January. So last January, the format is much more diverse, much more complex with various tendencies, but now it is more standardized into a linear fashion with standardizing of the best decks and also ranking the best tier list decks at the moment. And also the DBCB decks are still immaculate. So Ryzeal and Maliss are still phenomenal. I'm not sure what happened towards the Ryuge, but it's not performing. But the other two was really phenomenal right now, and also tons of reprints from different sets that made the game more accessible. So we do have a lot of AE Asian English version of sets, and the game was much more budget and versatile into your budget. Right now with those reprints, and there's also upcoming quarter century set once again for the end time, no? And we are also getting new tactical try cards for Exosister and Rescue Ace that is coming very soon this May or March. I'm not really sure. But yeah, the game is much more budget than the previous January format, and we are also getting a lot of reprints coming soon. So moving on towards our top 5, we do have Regenesis, a new core from the ALIN or Alliance Insight deck set, no? I think Regenesis have plummeted into success towards our top 5 on our list due to their stellar performance recently. From the past 2-3 weeks, Regenesis has been performing really phenomenal, and they are getting some big results on those Japanese big events and major events recently. So moving on towards the description for our Regenesis and sample deck list. So before we proceed, take it with a grain of salt for these deck lists. These deck lists have been tailored towards my deck building tendencies and preferences, and also card choices, no? So it does not reflect the actual deck building of the standard meta decks out there. But yeah, I also try my best to create a very functional and well-inspired deck list on our channel. So moving on towards our Regenesis strengths. So this is the modern anti-meta. You couldn't really undermine the impact of Regenesis towards the anti-meta players and control players. Now it is the modern best control deck. It overweighs the likes of Labyrinth, Eldritch, and Runic. Those decks doesn't compare with the sheer consistency of Regenesis. And also Regenesis offers much more interactive gameplay, and also it offers a barrage of versatility for the deck with Nadir Servant and Super Poly like we are seeing on this deck list. It is much more feasible going second rather than the likes of Runic and Labyrinth. So it is much more versatile and well-rounded, and also dances around Maxi. It doesn't care about Maxi or the Charmy cards, no? You can pretty much simplify your moves and play optimally under Maxi, so you don't suffer that much around Maxi, unlike the other decks here in the metagame, which are midrange and combo. They are going to likely suffer from inevitable Maxi and Charmy cards. So you have advantage towards the Maxi minigame in the OCG, and also often overlooked and not respected in the metagame. So a lot of people are still not respecting the Regenesis in this meta. I do believe that some people are still neglecting the back row threat of this deck, and they are not prepared against the trap lineup of this deck with Dragon's Mind, Daruma Cannon, and Dogmatica Punishment for the likes of those, no? I think those cards are really powerful on game 1, and if they're not really prepared on dealing against those back row threats, they are pretty much going to be obliterated with this kind of deck. And also your sideboard would be Anti-Speech Fragrance and Solemn Judgment. So those can be really irritating to face against when you don't have back row removals. And luckily, right now, the back row removal numbers are still not really up to the standards of playing around Regenesis. It lacks some power on board breaking and back row removal right now from the most anticipated decks and meta decks out there. They don't really comply towards this kind of deck, so you can pretty much take advantage of that situation where you can get easy wins and free wins from people that are not really respecting the matchup of Regenesis. But also, the deck has obvious weaknesses, can get easily left behind, so we cannot really deny that. Other decks are much more faster than the Regenesis. Even the decks that are lower than this, Christian, for example, and Orcus, those decks are much more faster, still more faster, and can really out-tempo you easily. And what more of the likes of Maliss, Ryzeal, and Ryzeal, those are much more faster decks than the Orcus and Christian. So I think you can really lack your firepower and also tempo in this game. You can easily get left behind. So that's the major flaw of the Regenesis. And not only Regenesis, almost all of the control decks easily lags behind from the best decks of midrange and combos in the modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And also prone to the popular back row and breaker removal. So if your locals or your environment are pretty much prepared on back row decks, like the rising popularity of Runic once again, and Labyrinth still prevalent, and also the rising popularity of Eldritch as well. So they're going to try to answer those decks, and if they do that and you're playing Regenesis, you can get easily affected by those side decking options of your opponents. So board breakers, back row removals can easily hurt your Regenesis gameplay, mostly relying on your floodgates. Now with skill drain, there can be only one summon limit. Those floodgates can easily get swiped by the likes of Feather Duster or Lightning Storm, for example. But all in all, I think Regenesis is a fairly new deck. Still lots of room for improvement and modernization of the deck list and standardization of the deck list. So I think it still has a lot of rooms to offer and can pretty much get innovated at some point moving forward. So moving on towards our top 4, we do have Blue Eyes Primite. So Blue Eyes Primite easily plummeted into stardom with their new structure deck. Before, it got so much attention, especially from meta players and also nostalgia players, where they're able to play the deck of Kaiba. Imagine that, Kaiba in 2025, that is just so ridiculous. It is like the dream of most Gen 1 players in the game, the Duelist Monster era players. This is the moment that they have been waiting for a very, very long time, since 2015, I guess. Blue Eyes won the Worlds, I think Blue Eyes now is pretty much competent and really formidable deck in this meta. Along with Primate, of course. Primate really does some wonders for the deck. So moving on towards the description of our Blue Eyes Primate. So Blue Eyes Primate, I think one obvious strength of Blue Eyes Primate is it is one of the best mid-range decks. It is like a jack of all trades deck where you get pretty much everything in this deck. One card starters, tons of hand trap, and lots of staples like talent and prosperity, and skill drain. And also omni-negate threats from Baronid Fleur, Drill Beam, banishing effects, and graveyard interruption. Almost everything has been jump-packed into one deck in this Blue Eyes Primite. It is pretty much going to cover all of your needs in this game, and it is a very good way of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In modern game where you have almost every type of interruption, and also ideal way of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! With more hand traps, and higher tempo one card combos. And also the deck is very consistent and the learning curve is easy, so we cannot really deny that. Even a pilot that is picking up the deck with 1 or 2 weeks practice, it can pretty much play the deck with no troubles or no issues. And the learning curve is pretty much easy. You just need to understand the 1 card combos of Blue Eyes Primite and be able to play around hand traps effectively and avoid certain situations that may endanger your gameplay or playthrough. So it also helps the deck is very much consistent. Lots of 1 card combos, and Primite Engine compensates a lot of consistency for the deck. So this is really phenomenal right now. And also future proof archetype. So 10 years from 2015, Blue Eyes is once again one of the best decks available. And as a matter of fact, Blue Eyes used to be the best deck in the previous formats or the previous months on last remainder of 2024 and the early stages of 2025, So it has been given that this deck will still get more new support, and it doesn't matter if it's 2027, 2020, 30. It doesn't matter, it will get more new support because this is a Kaiba archetype, this is dual monster archetype, and Blue Eyes is one of the most favored and beloved archetypes in the game. So expect that it will get new support from this point forward, and possibly I really have a hunch that Konami is pushing Blue Eyes as one of the top contenders in the upcoming Worlds Yu-Gi-Oh! 2025. So it will probably get more new attraction and new support from the following sets to make it a formidable deck this coming Worlds. And also, the weaknesses of the deck are pretty much simple. Going second can be lackluster. Sometimes your one card Beryl, one card Maiden can pretty much feel lackluster, especially if you don't draw your extenders or other baits for your opponents. So going second can be really underwhelming on some occasions, and also loses to almost everything. As much as the deck that does almost every single thing good, I think it also loses to almost every single good thing in this meta game. It loses to back row removals, Duster, Heavy Storm can wipe your True Light, and Hunt Traps can obliterate your setup, your field spell, your continuous cards can be easily swept with Ogre. So bunch of Hunt Traps as well, like Maxi, Charmies can really deal with the deck. So almost everything can answer the Blue Eyes Primite. So you are going to diddle daddle or walk on thin ice when you're playing this deck, because almost every single thing on the meta can hurt you if you're not playing properly or correspondently towards the hand traps and interruptions of your opponent. So moving on towards our top 3, we do have White Forest. So another deck that is supported by a large amounts of cards already. Sinful Spoils has been around since 2023, if I'm not mistaken. So imagine that it's almost 2 years, and the Sinful Spoils, White Forest, Azamina, all of those archetypes are still getting support in this date, in this February 2025. As a matter of fact, they have gotten more new support from the previous ALIN or Alliance Insight set. So they have gotten a barrage of supports already. So moving on towards our White Forest sample deck list. So White Forest strength is pretty much inevitable. It is easily one of the best combo decks out there. You cannot really find other combo decks that does so much like this in this modern game. And also with the limit of one wanted, one Diablo Star, which it is still really phenomenally strong, going first and very explosive as well, and can pretty much dish off one of the best boards in the entire game. So it is really strong as a combo deck, and also barrage of supports made the deck relentless. So 2 years worth of support are ingrained in this deck. So we cannot really joke about those numbers of cards. It has been really a huge asset for White Forest, and potentially the lore still did not end. No, the Diablo Star are still getting alternate arts from the upcoming quarter century. So probably, possibly, there is still a little bit of more support for this deck on the following sets. And also, they are pushing this deck as the lore or the main storyline of the game right now. So expect that it will get a lot of accessories, peripherals, and other new supports or other cards that may help the White Forest into stardom. So I think this is a really solid investment for a large period of time already, and you couldn't go wrong with this deck in my own honest perspective. And also astonishing Gus. It is unbelievable that this deck can play around almost single type of hand trap in this game, can play around roll, and can utilize playing around imperms, veilers, and the dominus cards. A lot of ways to dodge those hand traps and play effectively under those floodgates and hand traps. So I think this White Forest has been standardized for a brief period of time already. I think pilots have been garnering the best ratios for the deck, best tech options, best hand traps in the deck. So they are able to fit in those large amount of gas in this deck that can push through almost every type of interactions, boards of your opponent, game states. So it has almost every gas that you need when going first, and even going second. It can pretty much destroy or devastate most boards in this metagame. So yeah, I think it is just so powerful at this point. But weaknesses are pretty much the same for almost combo decks. Maxi and Charmis can be a pain. Those are really concerning. The Fualos, the Purulya, and the likes of Maxi can really tarnish your playthrough and experience on this deck. And also has some slight breaking issues. I know the deck is consistent. A 2025 deck does not feel like breaking any at all, no? But a lot of people that are playing White Forest for a long period of time already knows how this deck can be bricky at times, and sometimes you don't really have the proper hand cards to play almost every single thing. Even a Little Knight could hurt you, or a single Ash Blossom can be detrimental for you. So almost every single type of interaction can be devastating towards your playthrough if you don't have the proper hands, and also you don't really know how to navigate properly with this deck despite breaking or drawing lackluster. So yeah, it can be pretty underwhelming on certain occasions, and that's what separates the top 2 best decks from this White Forest, their sheer consistency and overall resiliency. So moving on towards our top 2, we do have Maliss. So I can get a lot of questions and yeah, insights from people that are telegraphing Maliss as the best deck right now, and I know a lot of people consider Maliss as the best deck, but for me, it is the second best deck at the moment, considering that a lot of people are really prepared on the Maliss matchup, and also, it is very respected by a lot of people, and the deck can sometimes falter on big events, and Ryzeal just have too much consistency right now. That's why I rank Maliss as top 2, but all in all, Maliss is still a formidable deck, and possibly the best well-rounded deck in this format in terms of combo resiliency. And moving on towards the sample deck list of Maliss and description. So this deck Maliss is heavily supported by a lot. When I say a lot, because they have gotten supports from the Maliss archetype. They have gotten new main deck monster and spell card, and they also had indirect support from the Ignister cards, from the Cyber's line of play. They are much more resilient now than before because of the Ignister cards, the Secretary, and whatnot, no? So I think the Maliss has gotten the bigger portion of favor from the previous ALIN set, and it really supported the Maliss into a really top tier contender deck right now, and also can set up one of the most oppressive boards in the format. Just look at the extra deck of the Maliss. It can bring out almost every single horrifying boss monster in the game. Appaloosa, all of those, Code, no? And pretty much can climb easily with the Link Spider, the Almirage, the Splash Mage. All of those can really help the Maliss playthrough and combo lines, and the limit is Sky for the Maliss. I think Sky is the limit for this deck. Expressiveness is not a concern for Maliss if you are a really skilled pilot on Maliss and you know how the deck functions. I think you can pretty much get away with almost every single thing, and also combo deck with 15 slots for hand drops. That is really terrifying. The last deck that are able to do that was the Snake Eyes decks, the Snake Eyes, Prime Snake Eyes format, where they have rooms for 15 non-engines and hand traps. Those are really scary for a combo deck. Imagine playing through their whole combo, establishing 5-7 interruptions, and still has 2-3 hand traps on their hand. That is really scary. You're going to go against 10 interruptions in a turn. You cannot really outdone that, and I think most decks would succumb from those kind of horrifying boards and backup of hand traps on their arsenal. So I think it is a really complete combo deck at this point, but the weaknesses are really concerning for Maliss. Most people sides against the deck too much. You know that if you are watching the OCG closely, Chaos Hunter, Artifact Lancea, Meowls, and almost every single type of anti-banish cards, drop power, and almost any card that can hurt the Maliss, they are exclusively playing those cards on their side deck and sometimes even main deck. So that's the reason why I have put Maliss on the top 2 on this list, because people are so heavily aggregated and prepared for the matchup. It doesn't matter if you're not playing Maliss, you're going to see how the Maliss have shaped the side decking patterns of most people in the OCG, especially in the major regions. Meowls has been a thing for quite some time already, 3-4 weeks already, and a lot of people still does really respect the Maliss matchup, because if you don't, you're getting outblown with Maliss. You don't have answers, okay, you are going to face 7 interruptions in a single turn. So I think you cannot really disrespect the deck. That's why people have been side decking too much for the Maliss matchup. And also some floodgates are too enormous for the deck. Sometimes those type of floodgates can uh, really dictate the tempo of the match for the Maliss matchup. I think certain floodgates can stop the Maliss from playing the game, and even though this deck can pretty much dance around hand traps effectively, droll, and other cards, no, I think it will struggle heavily on those floodgating cards, and their side decking pattern also is not sufficient enough to answer those floodgate type of cards. Moving on towards our top 1 on our list. It is none other than Ryzeal, of course. It is just between Maliss and Ryzeal. You just have to pick one poison from that, and it is either one of the two will be the best deck. But on this video, I have preferred to pick Ryzeal as our top 1. So Ryzeal on top 1, pretty much standard and self-explanatory at this point now. But we are still going to seam through the Ryzeal sample decklist and also the instructions and also descriptions for the Ryzeal. So strengths of Ryzeal is pretty much the versatility of the deck. You're able to play almost half of your deck as non-engines. You are also going to play floodgates like Summon Limit, Anti-Sweet Fragrance. So the deck is really versatile enough to fit in your ridiculous set of cards. You can probably even play both Moon, both Eclipse, and you can pretty much play Finsmith here and other engines, no? So the deck is really versatile, and you have a lot of creativity and freedom to express your intent or philosophy in the game towards this Ryzeal. So I think that's the biggest asset of Ryzeal, the sheer amount of versatility that this deck offers, and also the most prolific mid-range deck at the moment. So like I've said earlier, it can play numerous hand traps and floodgates and tech cards and consistency cards at this point, no, like Small World, Ascension, Bonfire, and Tachyon. So it is the most prolific mid-range deck up to date, and as we all know, OCG has been favored towards against mid-range decks. I think mid-range decks have so much representation and favor in this modern game due to how the deck can fit in so much everything and can also side out perfectly and easily on game 2 to 3. They can adapt on pretty much certain situations. So I think being one of the best mid-range decks in the modern game helps a lot for Ryzeal, and also consistency phenomenal. Even though you have lost Tachyon, Bonfire, and X, the star really made some difference for this deck, and the pilots have compromised the loss of consistency for the 7th and Small World, so it doesn't matter that much anymore. Right now, it reminds me of a Matmech where even though Matmech was guttered by banlist, Small Worlds and other consistency cards can pretty much help the deck and improve the consistency overall. So I think it is the best consistent deck out there to play. If you're looking for a deck that is consistent, does everything at a good amount of weight, and also a deck that is versatile, I think Ryzeal is the perfect deck for you. But even though the best can lag behind on some situations, and I think mirror matches is one of the most integral parts where you consider playing Ryzeal. I think mirror matches can be really draining, especially if you are paired against a really skilled pilot of Ryzeal. I have done that already. I have faced certain players in our community that are really good at Ryzeal, and I know for a fact that mirror matches can be really draining. It takes a lot of mental fortitude and resiliency physically, and you're going to face those challenges when you use Ryzeal on big events and large-scale tournaments. Now you're inevitably going to face Ryzeal at some point. So I think you need to prepare really hard for the mirror match, especially if you know that there's a lot of people in your environment that knows Ryzeal and plays Ryzeal religiously, and also takes a steep level of skill to pilot at top level. Even though the deck can be linear at times, the combos are pretty much simple, the interactions are also simple as it gets, no? The steep level of skill that you need to play and invest on this deck is really phenomenal, and you need to maintain those levels if you want to play the deck on large tournaments and top tier events. I think you need to invest a lot of time practicing the usage of interruptions of your detonator, using it on the proper timing on your certain decks, certain matchups, and also effectively using your hand traps like Vader and Imperm. It does a lot of skill to perfectly navigate the Ryzeal, and this is what most Ryzeal players overlook for a large period of time already. They pick up the deck and I think they can get lackluster results and lackluster showing, no? But it stems down in their understanding of how the detonator works and the detonator interrupts, and also the effective usage of the hand traps, and when to use their resources as well with Small World, Ascension, and 7 Tachyon. You need to navigate those hand traps and a lot of interruptions in this game. So I think it really depends on the skill level of the pilot whether a Ryzeal can perform really massively or underperform quite badly. So yeah, that sums up our top 5 meta decks in February 2025 OCG format, this post ALIN metagame. So if you found this video informative and helpful, please consider subscribing. It definitely motivates me a lot to keep providing this content for you guys. So once again, thank you for watching. See you on the next one. Peace.